Back shoulder injury has kept him off to the side during training camp as a precaution. Head coach Mike McCarthy told reporters, quote, "We're being a little more conservative with his rehab. We just want to make sure this doesn't turn into something bigger." LeVar, can Dak Prescott, your guy, pick up where he left off last season?
Let's talk about where he left off last season. 5 games, he was leading the NFL in yards passing per game at 371. That was higher than Patrick Mahomes. He threw for 9 passing TDs. Amazing. Had a quarterback rating of 99.6. Here's the only problem. In those 5 games, they went 2-3. So when I look at this question and I answer this question, pick up where he left off, does he want to pick up where he left off? Maybe he wants to do better than where he left off. Maybe this is a new start and a new opportunity to be a better Dak Prescott. I think looking at it from the perspective and the lens of purely a statistical category, sure, he was leading the league in yards per game. And that's wonderful. But again, I don't want to get too deep off into talking about the garbage time yards that he's been able to amass. I want to talk more or less about what Dak Prescott is going to bring to the table that can actually propel this team to being a competitive team. So, yes, you want him to throw for the same type of yards. I think he will throw for some high yardage. Now, will it be the tops in the league? It doesn't have to be. Here's another interesting stat. In those first 5 games also, you had one, Ezekiel Elliott ran for 364 yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. That's an average of 73 yards per game. That's not enough. And I think we know that that's not enough. So, again, it comes back to what is this offensive line going to bring to the table? Are you going to give this offense the ability to create balance with its running game? If Ezekiel Elliott can get off to a start or where he's averaging right around 100 yards to over 100 yards, if you go back and you look at the stats, when Zeke goes over 100, this team is really, really efficient and effective in getting victories. So this all comes down to, is the offensive line going to open holes? Is Ezekiel Elliott going to be able to find that elusive young man that we saw eating every single time he got up from making a play? Is he going to be that guy? Because I think if those things happen, then now Dak Prescott doesn't have to be this superhuman person that throws for these ungodly amounts of numbers and stats in losing efforts. I think that finding that balance, he will get his passing yards. He will be effective. I do believe that that will happen for Dak Prescott in this offense this year. But I think that it's going to be the balance of the running game and the ability to use your running backs and a better offensive front that is going to be the difference. So I don't say he picks up from where he left off last year. I say he actually is a better quarterback, and this is a better team coming into the first few games of the year.
Yeah, you stole my take, LeVar, because I'm with you. He can't be as good as he was last year. He has to be better. And I know nobody's going to throw, at least at this stage, for more than 371 yards a game. Okay? But he won't do that. But he doesn't need to do that. You mentioned it briefly. One of the reasons he did that was because they were down big in so many games. And he put up numbers like over 450 yards 3 times. But he did it against bad teams defensively. Cleveland was a bad defensive team. Atlanta and Seattle were among the worst in the league. I think they were the bottom 2, actually, against the pass defensively. So he did it against those teams. He didn't do it against the Rams. Ramsey only put up 1 touchdown, 266 yards. And before he got hurt in the games against the Giants, he had, which was a good defense, even though they weren't a really good team, he had no touchdowns and 1 interception when he got hurt midway through the 3rd quarter. So Dak needs to be better. And if he's, look, Dak, I've backed Dak from day 1. I've loved the intangibles, all right? I've raved about him even on this show. Winner, leader, smart, intelligent, can do it different way, all that, all right? But Dak isn't Pat Mahomes. Dak isn't Aaron Rodgers. Dak does not, if he's throwing for 350 yards a game, I think that spells trouble because that means you've been down. That means your running game isn't working. And when Dak has won, it has been the running game got things going, kept the defense honest, and then Dak is a capable passer. I think he has improved his passing ability over the last few years, But still, they're better off if Zeke can get that thing going, and now they got to worry about Zeke off tackle, and Dak can do his thing. And I think Tony Pollard can help, because I expect a bounce back year from Zeke, but not to go back to getting 1,600 yards in a season necessarily. But they need to have that run game strong, and then I think Dak will be smarter than ever. He throws it better than ever. They got a great receiving core, and so then they can win. And he hasn't beaten very good teams throughout his career. He's beaten the bad squads. And I know they have an easy schedule, but he still needs to be better when they get in those big games.
Yeah, to Chris's point, first 7 games next year, the Cowboys play only one top 10 pass defense, Tampa Bay in the opener. But I'm going to pause for a second and ask you guys, I'm just going to float this out loud. Do you want Dak to pick up where he left off last year? Because I think that leads to a question about identity for the Cowboys, right? Everybody knows, you say LeVar Arrington, what's his identity? Oh, that was that beast at Penn State, #2 overall pick. That's his identity. You think of Jason McIntyre, well, that guy knows gambling. I mean, I got to ask him about where the picks are. You think of Broussard, what's his identity? Dude's covered the NBA forever, NBA guy. You think of the Dallas Cowboys, what is their identity right now? Is it, hey, Zeke Elliott is Jerry Jones's guy. Zeke Elliott, you got to feed him, right? He's always asking to be fed. Are they a running team, or are they, hey, wait a sec, they just gave Dak $40 million a year. They got to be a passing team. So I don't know what the Cowboys are heading into this season. There are, I said, I think earlier this week, the Cowboys got 99 questions. Dak Prescott ain't one of them. We know what he's going to do. He's going to be a solid quarterback, probably on the fringe of the top 10. But what about the rest of the team? Where's the offensive line? Is the defense going to show up? And boy, wait a couple segments, we're going to be blasting that defense that LeVar loves. So I have a lot of questions about the identity of the Cowboys this season. Are they going to let their big money quarterback who got the bag, who's got the injury, are they going to let him flow? Are they going to hand it off to Zeke with the dollop of Tony Pollard? Are they going to ride the defense? Well, that's a hell no. So I don't know what their identity is. I think we'll find out early that they're probably going to be a running team, go back to the ground and pound to set up the pass where their guys can win on the outside. But yeah, I have questions about Dallas's identity. Well, maybe we'll see some of that tonight.
You know, J-Mac's identity is to put words in people's mouths. That's what J-Mac's identity is.
That's mine, obviously.
I figured you'd enjoy that one. You asked a question about identity. Let me answer that question. 8-1 when Ezekiel Elliott goes 100 yards plus rushing the ball. 8-1, okay? So am I saying they're a run-heavy team? No, I'm saying that just like when Troy Aikman was Troy Aikman for this Dallas Cowboys team, they had an offensive line that could open up the holes so much so that Emmitt Smith ends up being the all-time leading rusher in the history of the National Football League. Now, I know he got yards other places, but he broke it in Dallas. So here's the thing about that, right? They built this team in the likeness, like the Almighty built us, in the likeness of those championship Super Bowl teams. So if you're talking about those 99 problems, well, another problem isn't personnel, because they've built this team personnel-wise to actually be able to, no, defensively as well. They have built this team to match and mimic the defense and the offense, the personnel of those old Dallas Cowboy teams. So for me, when I look at this team, they have to find the balance. You actually have one more receiver that is a meaningful big play receiver on this receiving core than you did even on that old school team with Harper and Irving. So to me, when I look at having Cooper and Lamb and Gallup on the edges, and you have a legit tight end, if you can find that balance, the identity of this team going into the year, in my opinion, is one, they're going to be physical on both sides of the ball. Two, they're going to be more athletic than you are. They're going to be bigger, physically athletic, and really they're going to wear you down. That is, to me, what the identity of this Cowboys team is, what they're going for. Now, will they be that? Again, it now comes back to the conversational points. Everybody has to play their role. The offensive front and the defensive fronts have to be dominant if this is to work out for the Cowboys. They have to put these teams and these units in winning situations. The defense does their part. then now they're able to hold up until the offense puts enough points on the board. If you're putting the points on the board and you can grind it out with the run while you balance it out with passing, then now the defense can pin its errors back. Dan Quinn plays a very aggressive style of defense. We'll talk about that in a little bit.